H. Upmann is one of the oldest, largest, and most prestigious cigar brands in the world, and with such an extended and successful period of operations comes quite a turbulent history. It is the most turbulent period of H. Upmann's history that we'll explore in this video, and try to dig into how on earth a big cigar company became involved in a massive World War I spy scandal. To begin, we need to quickly look at H. Upmann's history. The cigar-making business was started in 1844 by a German banker by the name of Hermann Dietrich Upmann. He also started his parallel banking business at the same time, and it was also named after him. When Hermann retired in 1890, both the banking and cigar business was turned over to his nephew Heinrich Upmann, who would do the same in 1914 and give the businesses to his nephews Hermann and Albert. At this time, the cigar brand was massively successful and one of Cuba's largest, and the bank was also doing very well. So now you may be asking yourself, other than the company's German heritage, how could the brand possibly be connected with the First World War emerging on the other side of the world? Well, Latin America was actually a very big aspect of the German war strategy beyond the European theater. The reason the US joined World War I in the first place was in large part because of the Latin American espionage factor and the Zimmermann telegram. In any case, this truly was the first World War, as Germany's operations extended far beyond Europe. Cuba had declared themselves neutral at the beginning of the war, and was throughout the years a popular destination for German spies that fled from the US. Cuba's neutrality and proximity to the US also made it a viable spot for Germany to base submarines. These factors together led to Germany initiating a spy network on the island. H. Upmann's involvement really begins with what's called the blacklist. In an attempt to strangle the German economy, the Allied nations put into place a full blockade and boycott for all the Central Powers' commerce. The Allies would place sanctions on all companies that were owned by countries from the Central Powers, within or outside their nations. This, then, extended to all German companies even outside of Germany itself. So virtually all German-owned companies in Latin America were blacklisted, whether or not they actually aided Germany. This, of course, included H. Upmann, and made their trade with Europe quite difficult. There were supposedly less than 1,000 Germans in Cuba at the time of the war, but many of them were very influential economically. Perhaps most influential, though, were the aforementioned Upmann brothers, Hermann and Albert. Because of their status and growing ill will towards the Allied nations after that mentioned blacklist, the Upmanns being chosen as the host of this new and efficient German spy network was quite natural. They were so efficient when it began, in fact, that when the US State Department later investigated them in 1916, they found no evidence of German agents being there at all, even though the Upmann building on Calle de Mercaderes in central Havana was a hub for traveling German spies in the region. The Upmann spy network didn't only act as a hub though, but they also carried out missions. One example was in 1917, when Upmann agents blew up sugar cargoes heading for the Allied nations. At this point, Cuba and the United States began working closer together to weed out the network, but the Upmanns were simply too deeply rooted in Cuban commerce and society to just get rid of easily. The most important involvement by the Upmann spy network, however, was their involvement in transporting important documents between Germans in the US, Latin America, and headquarters in Berlin. Cuban agent Luis Melendez describes the flow of information at the time, where it would begin in the US or Mexico, and from there it was delivered to the Upmann headquarters in Havana. It would consequently be the Upmanns who took the documents and distributed them to their agents, who would smuggle them across the Atlantic, towards Spain, and finally up to Germany. The Upmann organization really became a crucial part of the flow of German secret intelligence. Eventually, however, as Germany began losing the war, the Upmann family's involvement in World War I would come back to haunt them. After both the US and Cuba declared war on Germany, their stances against the Upmann family became more firm. On the 5th of December in 1917, the H. Upmann Company was named to the very first U.S. enemy trading list of foreign companies with whom U.S. banks and companies were forbidden to trade. Herman and Albert Upmann were both named individually and added to the list on July 26, 1918 and October 4, 1918 respectively. This would turn out to be disastrous for the Upmanns, as they now had virtually no one to do business with. Many of their assets, including all of their various US-based assets, were seized. So what was their fate? Well, the brothers tried to salvage what little they had left in an illegitimate manner. In 1922, both the bank and their cigar business were bankrupt, and Herman and Albert both tried to flee Cuba. Albert did actually manage to get out of any personal economic charges by claiming he was only ever connected to the cigar-making side of the business. Herman was forced to stay in Cuba though, and lost most of his fortune and his position as an influential Cuban businessman. Most importantly though, is the fact that Albert and Herman were never personally charged or found guilty for any direct involvement in the spy network during the Great War, and in a way got away with it all. So how come H. Upmann, the cigar brand, still even exists today? Well, in 1925, J. Frankow and Company, which was one of Upmann's licensed distributors in the UK, bought the H. Upmann cigar brand and the factory, and restored the brand and continued production. So it's thanks to this that we can still smoke and enjoy their fabled and storied cigars today.